This is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles, this is hour number 3. In 5 minutes, Peter Schrager from New York is joining us live with the very latest NFL news. Christine Leahy, of course, is with us again before she moves on in New York, and she's got a little project she's working on, top
You're
secret.
making it sound like I'm moving to New York.
You know, a lot of
It's 2 days.
all over the place. So Peter Schrager in 5 minutes. Now, of course, yesterday was Selection Sunday. And Selection Sunday means the NCAA chooses the 68 teams to be in the tournament. So let me start with that. We got our brackets yesterday afternoon in America. It's one of those 5, 6, 7, 8, big sporting moments in America every year. It's the bracket. They unveil it. And this morning, everybody's complaining. Of course they're complaining because we live in America where now it is the cult of victimhood. I deserve instead of I earned. Oklahoma State didn't get in. I'm supposed to be livid. They were 19-14 and sub 500 in the Big 12. Oh, my heavens, they didn't get in. So, I'm losing sleep over that. Sub 500 in your own conference. Oh, my God, USC didn't get in. Oh, really? USC beat one team in this entire tournament and also at one point lost to Princeton, who finished 5th in the Ivy League. I'm supposed to lose sleep on that one. Louisville didn't get in. Yeah, they had a brothel on campus. That may have had an influence on it. Yeah, I deserve. Think of the term bubble team. That's the big term. The teams that didn't get in were on the bubble and knew they were on the bubble. Think of the term bubble. Housing bubble, stock bubble. What does that mean? It's fleeting. It will burst. Fleeting. Doesn't last long. Let's think of bubble gum, bubble bath. What does that mean? Doesn't last very long. Bubble, expanding, quickly, about to burst, fleeting. All these bubble teams knew they were bubble teams. They were all 2.6 students with poor ACT scores, crossing their fingers they could get into the college they wanted to. And when the college says, no, we've got better options, we deserve. You didn't earn. Dickie V getting worked up because one of his coaching buddies didn't get in is pure comedy to me. The fact is, this is the most inclusive sporting event in America. 68 teams get in. I can't find a third of them on a map. I didn't know a quarter of them were colleges. They sound like truck stops. The World Cup, let me repeat that word. The World Cup allows 32 teams. This tournament allows 68 teams in, and they give you a lot of different ways to get in. You can schedule tough out of conference in your first 8 games, win a couple. You get in. You can be really good in the regular season in your conference and impress people and get in. You can stumble in both the out of conference and the regular season, win your conference tournament, and you get in. They give you all sorts of ways to get in. But the number one program in America in college basketball is arguably Kentucky. Kentucky. Even John Calipari gets in yesterday, plays the victim. Here's John Calipari.
Well, I was in a car with my wife, and my phone blew up. And it was like one after the other, and I didn't know there were so many ways to say you got screwed again. That's what kept hitting my phone. And I had to ask my guys, how many of you know what state Boise's in?
It's Idaho. The coach at the University of Kentucky, I know it's not Harvard. The coach doesn't know where Idaho's at. It's Washington, it's the west part of the country. Oregon's, Nevada, Idaho. It's shaped like a little boot or something. Yeah. He also complained about what time they have to play, the length of the trip, the cult of victimhood. USC has one win over a team in this tournament. Oklahoma State, sub 500 in the Big 12. Louisville, a brothel on campus. John Calipari has to travel to a state he's never been to. I've never had a problem with the committee's seating. They're overwhelmingly right. That's why the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 seats dominate this tournament. That's why we rarely see anybody under an 8 seed do anything in this tournament other than maybe win 2 games. And by the way, I don't care where you're seated. I've always had a theory. If you pay for the wedding, you get to determine the seating chart. I've been in a couple weddings. When you pay for them, you decide who sits next to who. Okay? I'm giving you an open bar, free cake, an entertaining evening, roast beef. I'll decide where you sit. The NCAA and the networks pay for everything. If they want to put Kentucky out west, so they have to play Arizona in their second or third game, no problem whatsoever. For the record, Oklahoma got in. People are upset. Do you know why Oklahoma's in? Because they're good enough to argue they should be in, and they have a player, Trae Young. I and you can't wait to watch in the tournament. I'm glad they got in. I'm glad, live from New York via the Coward Global Satellite Network, that Peter Schrager is joining us today. Okay, next few days, first of all, explain to my audience, next few days, what's happening in the NFL. We had the Combine, free agency opens. Next 2 or 3 days, what happened for these teams?
Yeah, Colin, in a snapshot, at the Combine, teams are able to meet with agents and kind of just talk about it in broad terms about which free agents are available. Today, teams can actually talk numbers, and then they cannot sign deals till Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern. Some things are going to leak out between today and Wednesday, but I would say everybody, Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern is when it just goes nuts, and you're going to see all these player deals announced. But right now, agents are able to talk to the teams and kind of talk numbers and get a feel for where these guys are at.
All right, Richard Sherman to the San Francisco 49ers. You're saying this is a very unique deal.
Yeah, it's unique because Richard Sherman represented himself in the negotiations. Unheard of, and he did so with one of the top negotiators in the entire league. That photo you showed of Lynch, the other guy is Parag Marathi, who is the president of 49ers Enterprises, and he has done a lot of deals in his day. He's a Stanford MBA. They went head-to-head for 5.5 hours, and what is so unique is the response that we've seen from this. I have gotten over 20 texts from agents across the NFL world saying this is the worst contract they have ever seen on paper. Well, why? Because they're incentivized by players using agents for this thing. What Sherman did was made it all incentive-based. He basically gets $3 million up front. It says if I make the All-Pro team, if I start every game, if I play this many snaps, and if I'm Pro Bowler, I get extra bonuses. He said, I'm going to bet on myself. What is an interesting wrinkle in this entire thing, guys, is that there were 3 major reasons why Sherman wanted to go to the 49ers. One, this thing is a carousel, and if he walked out of that room on Saturday night, there is no guarantee another team was going to be there on Sunday. 2, the Stanford connection, obviously, with them playing in Northern California, but also John Lynch. And also 3, he wants to play the Seahawks twice. I mean, he wants to do that. He's that kind of guy that has a vengeance in his heart, and he actually called the Seahawks. This hasn't been reported everywhere. During these negotiations, said, here's what the offer is. You guys have a chance to match this. John Schneider, there is a lot of goodwill between those 2 guys. They've done a lot of things. Schneider and the Seahawks said, we can't match that. We don't want to match that. You can go sign that deal. And so there he is. It's 3 things, and one of those major things was vengeance. And Colin, I cannot wait to see the dramatics when he goes up against Russell Wilson and Doug Baldwin this year.
Okay, let's talk about the Cleveland Browns. I was shocked by the social media reaction that an 0-16 team lands Tyrod Taylor and they're Super Bowl bound. My takeaway is you can make the argument Buffalo's last 2 coaching staffs would not wrap their arms around Tyrod Taylor. But I will say this. Cleveland's making a lot of moves, Peter. What do they translate to? What are they trying to – what's the signal to the rest of the league? Because I think there's something there.
That's it, Colin, and that is it. You know that movie 3 Billboards everyone was talking about? Those 3 trades on Friday night were 3 billboards to all the free agents, all the agents, and the rest of the league that the Cleveland Browns are here to play this month. They are looking to bring in talent, and they are looking to get back involved. Last year, I could tell you that Tony Jefferson, a safety that signed with the Ravens, was offered a lot more money to go play for the Cleveland Browns. He said, I want to play for a contender. No offense. I appreciate the money. But I'm actually looking to play for guys that are going to be competitive and are going to be relevant this year. These moves, Jarvis Landry already tweeting up a storm. Tyrod Taylor saying, I'm ready for this. Demarius Randall saying, let's go. It was a message to the rest of the league. There's no more look for, hey, we're going to do this in 5 years. It's this year. They're going to be players. And I'll tell you, them going for Tyrod Taylor, it was kind of a statement saying everyone was linking Hugh Jackson and A.J. McCarron, and this is going to be a McCarron pick. This was John Dorsey, the general manager, who came from Kansas City, who before that was in Green Bay, saying, this is my team. It is a general manager's team, and we are going to build this the best way we can. Colin, the best thing they did in those 3 trades, between all the goodwill and all that, it was also they protected every one of their first and second round picks. They didn't touch that war chest. They have 6 picks in the first 65, and they didn't have to give up any of them. They still have the first and fourth overall, and they have the out of all of the teams, they have the second most amount of money to spend in free agency. Look, Jarvis Landry might not be Jerry Rice, but he certainly is a nice piece to entice some players to say, hey, you could play with this guy. The Browns are in a very different vein being looked at around the league as they were a year ago.
Listen, OBJ is iconic. He's amazing. He's a little fragile. I saw the videotape in a European hotel, and my big takeaway was, you had a French model in your hotel room and you went Domino's? Come on, it's Europe, baby. I looked at it and I was like, it is what it is. If it was a quarterback, I'd be bummed out. What's the takeaway in the city you live? What's the takeaway from the Giants? Are they freaking out?
No, I don't feel like anyone's freaking out. And in fact, everyone's more concerned about what they're going to do in free agency in the near term and whether they're going to get offensive line play than the Odell Beckham thing. But Beckham's come out and he said, I want to be paid like a quarterback. And you wouldn't give quarterbacks money who have that kind of stuff going on. I will say this. It's going to be a very interesting deal because Mike Evans just got his money in a major extension. They're the same draft class, same kind of deal. And the Giants, I'm told, are not that close with Odell about getting an extension done. In this video, although it doesn't cripple him in any sort of way as far as whether he's going to be on the field next year, it certainly does raise more red flags, and that's the last thing you want to have when you're talking about an extension and being paid $20 million a year.
Okay, Rams get Marcus Peters, who comes with some baggage. Eagles roll the dice on Michael Bennett, who, if nothing else, can be polarizing to a lot of people. Again, what does that tell you? The Rams going there, the Eagles going there, really aggressive teams. It's not like the Eagles needed another great defensive lineman. So, they're very good up front. But to me, whenever I see certain teams being super aggressive, like the Browns, your theory on the Browns or your information, what are the Rams and what are the Eagles? What's going on in those buildings? Why are they aggressive?
Very similar philosophies on team building and trust in a coach and locker room. A lot of teams would say, we don't want Marcus Peters, bad chemistry guy. We don't want Aqib Talib. That's the kind of guy that maybe isn't great for our locker room. The Rams believe that you will give us all the talent. We'll figure it out. Winning will cure all those issues. And you know what? Sean McVay will cure those issues. He can talk to these guys unlike any other coach can, and that the wins will be what does it. The Eagles, very similar philosophy. Good defensive lineman, Michael Bennett. I don't want to hear about all the problems he might have. Guess what? You win games, and that's what works. And the Eagles, their point is, look at last year. Everyone said Jay Ajayi couldn't fit in the Dolphins' locker room. He was a cancer, all this stuff. They brought him in, and it worked. Look, LeGarrette Blount could be a problem. He might have some issues off the field. Whatever it is, bring him in. We will win. It'll work. It is a trust that wins will lead to locker room culture, and not locker room culture leads to wins. Very interesting dynamic there where both those teams are saying, you give us your issues. We won't care about it because you know what? Our locker room is different than those locker rooms. We will make it work. I love aggressive teams. I love content in March. And both those teams are not afraid to take guys that other teams would shy away from.
Okay, Kirk Cousins reportedly down to the Vikings, which have a great defense and a great roster, 2 good receivers. The Vikings can win the Super Bowl with the right quarterback. They are a great, great roster. The Jets are not, but the Jets can pay more probably, or are at least willing to pay more than the Vikings. It seems pretty simple. Does Kirk Cousins want to win, or does he want to get rich? Now, that's what it seems like to me. Am I wrong? Is he down to other teams?
I think it's those 2 teams. I think Arizona's not going to be willing to pay what the Jets are and the Vikings probably are. And Denver, for whatever reason, has been quiet on this thing. So I think it's going to be interesting how it plays out. 2 little notes as we get towards the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes here. Minnesota law has an issue with Michigan law, and he lives in Michigan where the taxes, they're just one tax. He'll just pay Michigan state tax where he has his estate. He lives in Michigan. So he only will pay 4.25% on his taxes. Meanwhile, New Jersey, you got to pay both Michigan tax and New Jersey tax. Woo! So the Vikings, whereas they might not be paying him as much, he might make more money taking less from the Vikings.
Wow.
That is a huge deal.
Oh, yeah.
Reciprocal tax law, and it's only 4.25% up there in Michigan. Meanwhile, in New Jersey, it's 9.5%. No one talks tax law. It's not sexy, but it matters. The second part to this is the Jets kind of have this ace in the hole. The guy's name is Jeremy Bates. He's their offensive coordinator, their new offensive coordinator, and he comes from that Shanahan tree. The Vikings, they have nobody from that Shanahan tree. Why does that matter? Because Kirk Cousins, his closest ally and all that stuff is Kyle Shanahan. knows Mike Shanahan, played for Mike Shanahan. Jeremy Bates knows that system,
Wow.
knows that world, knows that offense. The Vikings, John DeFilippo, Mike Zimmer, right up to Rick Spielman, there's no relationship with Cousins. And the telltale caution sign from that Osweiler deal was, don't just go a place where you don't know anybody. Don't just go to a place that, Houston, it makes sense. Remember, Bill O'Brien had never spoken to Brock Osweiler before, and it just was not a good fit. Cousins, he knows Jeremy Bates. He knows that Jets system. It might be more comfortable to go to the place where the taxes are less and they're better defense, but it might be better off going with a guy who knows the offense and might be a better fit. It's going to be fascinating. This guy, Kirk Cousins, is going to make a lot of money, but it's going to be interesting to see which side he chooses.
All right, Schrage, great stuff. Thanks, man.
Love you, Colin. Thank you.
All right, that's very interesting stuff. So it looks like he's down to the Vikings and the Jets. By the way, it should be noted on the Niners. Niners actually wanted to keep Talib, and they kind of settled for Richard Sherman. Aqib Talib at this point, I think, is a better corner than Richard Sherman, simply because I don't know physically what Richard Sherman can and can't do. He just had an Achilles surgery, and those are tough. Those are really tough for corners. So we'll find out what happens. By the way, tomorrow, live in our studio, Greg Jennings stops by. The tournament is here in college hoop. Baseball season's fast approaching. Hockey, basketball season's in the stretch run, which means it's the perfect time to head to SeatGeek. Smartest, easiest way to get tickets for every game, whether you're searching for a last-minute deal, planning a night out, and need to find a perfect gift. I got SeatGeek on my phone. Easiest way to shop for tickets. Concerts, theater, comedy. SeatGeek saves you time and money. Searches multiple ticket sites, compares prices, finds amazing deals. Best of all, my listeners get $20 off their first SeatGeek purchase. $20. All you got to do, 2 taps, download the SeatGeek app, enter the promo code HERD, the promo code HERD, $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase today. SeatGeek, comedy, theater, concerts. For you and I, primarily, probably sports. 2 taps, SeatGeek app, code HERD. $20 off.
Paul's